This is Talk Easy. I'm Sam Fragoso. Welcome to the show. Mayor Karen Bass.
Yes.
Pleasure to meet you.
Thank you. It's very nice to meet you as well.
You know, your team suggested that we sit down for an interview. I have to admit, when they suggested the idea, I thought, Los Angeles, pretty tough year.
Very tough year.
Pretty tough year.
Very tough.
It's not typical that a politician would run towards an interview after a year like this. And so I want to just commend you from the top. Like, the fact that you're here means a whole lot. But how are you doing?
Well, thank you for asking. I appreciate that. I'm doing fine. And yes, it was a tough beginning to the year. But
that feels like an understatement.
Yeah. Well, in a way it is. But, I actually like this because I like having thoughtful conversations. Getting past a soundbite like you have to do in a regular, routine press interview. But to sit down and have a thoughtful conversation is something I do appreciate. And what I used to do is I used to do town halls all the time. And I love that public engagement. Town halls are a little more difficult now, though, not having anything to do with this year, but just having to do with the nature of public discourse now.
Okay, I want to know, jumping right in, when you wake up in the morning, what's your morning look like? When the ice raids have been happening this summer, do you wake up every morning with dread? Like, how do you get up and start getting to work?
Well, first of all, I do wake up extremely early, and my morning is spent, probably like a lot of people, reading the news on my phone. And I read, but I've compulsively read and followed the news since I was a child.
But now you do what most of us do.
Right.
Except in your case, you actually have a chance to more meaningfully affect the news that you see on the screen.
But I have to follow the news to know what is going on.
Okay.
And so I follow local, state, federal, and international.
Well, let's start with local.
Sure.
The Trump administration over the summer deployed Marines and the National Guard to Los Angeles to, quote, quell the ICE protest and to liberate the city, their word, liberate, to liberate the city from its elected officials. Department of Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem said your leadership is both socialist and burdensome, and that ICE operations will continue to target, quote, people in work sites that are trafficking drugs and trafficking human beings. I have two questions. When she says socialist leadership, is she describing Mayor Karen Bass, or is she describing Karen Bass at the age of 19 who traveled to Havana, Cuba to explore alternatives to capitalism?
No, I think she is just doing the performance of the administration.
And you've worked with her in the past.
I was going to say, I do know her.
Yes. You guys would wake up early and run together in a gym.
Well, yes. We would both work out in the gym together.
Yeah.
Not so much running, but we would both work out in the gym.
Power walking.
And and so she certainly knows me. We served together for, I believe, at least 10 years. I was in Congress for 12 years.
And did she ever mention that you were a socialist in that time?
No, that's why it's performative.
Okay.
And, because I did go through the first Trump administration, I'm used to what do we used to call it, performance art? I mean, I'm used to the performative nature of the leadership. And so to me, the raids were that, as well. To relieve us, to rescue us, we were doing just fine on June 5th. June 6th is when things became difficult with the first raid that happened. And remember, it wasn't just one place. I think it was 4 or 5 places all at the same time. So it created a sense of confusion and chaos in the city. What is going on? What is happening here? We were all taken by surprise, and there was no communication, whereas I had been working with the administration positively in terms of Palisades. I mean, it's one of the reasons why we were able to get the lots cleared so that people could rebuild so fast, because the administration had an unprecedented number of Army Corps of Engineers to get that work done.
And you credit the Trump administration for helping you on that front.
Well, they're the ones that are in control of the Army Corps of Engineers. It could not have happened without them.
So they seem to be willing collaborators on the recovery front after the fires.
Mm-hmm.
Why has their tune changed so greatly this summer in the ice raids?
Well, first of all, their tune didn't, in the sense that he ran on this. But remember, in the beginning of the administration, they were going after hardened criminals. And there is absolutely no evidence of that.
People trafficking drugs and trafficking human beings.
And I don't know how driving down the street you can tell that by looking at people. I don't know how you can tell that in a parking lot of Home Depot when you're running and chasing people. You don't even know who they are. Or, emptying out a car wash of the employees. So what they said and what they did were two different things. And then they also reduced it from violent criminals, drug traffickers, to, well, if you're in the country illegally, you're a criminal. But then we know that they were also detaining people who were here illegally, who were showing up for their immigration visits with papers.
You've equated these actions to, quote, a federal takeover.
Yes.
And proof that we're a test case.
Yes.
Here in the nation's second largest city.
Yeah.
A test case for what exactly?
Well, first of all, what they did was it was a federal seizure of power from the governor. They seized the National Guard and federalized them. And I use that language because I think it's very important for people to understand. The governor is in charge of the National Guard. If we needed the National Guard for any reason, we would have asked the governor. And he certainly, I don't know the history beyond my time as mayor, but I can't imagine him turning us down if it was what we needed. But we did not need that. So I felt as though it was a stunt. And I said Los Angeles was a petri dish, basically giving a warning to cities all over the country. And the Monday after the first raids, I was on a Zoom call with over 100 mayors. So people around the country were very worried. You chose to do that to this city, to the nation's second largest city. Why?
How have you come to understand what you described as a performative stunt? Because what is performative on television has had real-time consequences in the lives of Los Angelenos. So tell me the distance between what is performative on TV versus the lived experiences of people in this city.
Well, all I mean by performative is that the raids were indiscriminate. They were massive, pulling people over on the street. You can't say that was anything but performative if you say that you're going after hardened criminals and all of that. You basically are pulling people over who appear to be Latino, because you also can't say that anybody that's in the country illegally is a criminal and that's who you were going after if you have no way of knowing that.
And you've seen no evidence of ICE detaining violent offenders?
Well, I think if they had detained a number of violent offenders, they would have put them all in the cameras. We would have known all about it. My understanding, because that is part of the problem, we don't know who it was. I mean, we know that family members say, my husband or my wife didn't come home, right? But we don't know in advance who they're going after. So my understanding is that of the people that they have detained, to the best of our knowledge at this point, that more than 50% of them had no criminal records at all.
More than 50% had no criminal records?
No criminal records at all.
Now, you say to your knowledge.
Yes, I have to qualify that.
Now, explain this to me, because
sure,
we started this conversation talking about how we both wake up in the morning and are scrolling on our phones. And it sounds as if we may have similar amounts of information about the ICE raids. And that is...
You are correct.
That is very concerning. Can I tell you why?
Yeah.
Because I host a podcast. You're the mayor.
Exactly right.
Why the hell... There should be a huge gulf between us in terms of information. What is the dialogue between this administration's ICE raids and your office?
Well, there you go. None.
No dialogue.
No, we have been functioning off of rumor.
Rumor.
Right. And so, for example, I got this morning, I woke up and one of the city council members sent me pictures of an ICE raid that took place this morning. Now, even though we have the temporary restraining order, that took place this morning at a Home Depot. So how did I find out about it? I found out about it when one of her constituents sent her a picture and she sent it to me. There has been no communication from the administration.
Why?
Well, I guess that's again why I said that it has been an assault on our city, that I said that it's a federal seizure of power.
Right.
All of that is what happens when there is no communication or coordination.
But are you demanding information and it's just not being given?
Well, demanding, I mean, I think I've been very vocal about it and actually had a meeting scheduled with one of the leaders of ICE here, but he canceled the meeting.
Was there a reason for the canceling?
Yes, he was upset that the city was looking to intervene in the lawsuit that eventually led to the temporary restraining order. I did remind him, though, that he was suing me. I mean, the administration is suing the city of Los Angeles and named me personally.
Now, I've heard a lot about that. I talked to the ACLU this morning, and I've heard all about the federal appeals court on August 2nd, which upheld a ruling that blocks U.S. immigration officials, including ICE agents, from making arrests in Los Angeles based solely on appearance language, or location, unless probable cause is established. Tell me about what sounds like a temporary win for you.
Well, the temporary win up until today, I think, was very positive in the sense that, you were seeing random raids all day, all over different parts of time, and they stopped once the temporary restraining order was in place. That's why what happened this morning is very concerning.
Right.
And we have to get to the bottom of it. So what it looked like, because I saw a still picture, but I also saw video, it looks like what they were doing before, running through the parking lot of Home Depot. Now, maybe they had warrants. Maybe they were going after specific people. I doubt it, but I don't have that information right now.
You don't know if they had probable cause.
I do not.
There's been a lot of, in preparation for this, I asked a lot of people. I've lived in Los Angeles for 9 years, so I asked a lot of people about what they wanted to ask you, and a lot of it did come back to ICE.
Yeah.
One of the major questions was at least 40% of the construction workers in Los Angeles are immigrants. How have the ICE raids affected the rebuilding efforts across this city in the aftermath of the wildfires?
I actually believe it's more than 40%, just so you know.
That's why I said at least.
Right. But I do not believe it has had an impact yet. Okay? But I am very concerned about it. Now, as mayor, I only represent one area, and that's Palisades.
The Pacific Palisades. That's right.
But I do know that there was a raid near Altadena, and then there was a raid at a Home Depot in the Marina. Now, that's a little distance from Pacific Palisades, but close enough to scare the workforce. So I have not heard that the workforce has been impacted, but I have no doubt that if this temporary restraining order is ignored and they go back to having massive raids, that it will. Because you do know that there is a segment of our population who, I hope they're coming out now. Well, maybe I don't after this morning, but who have been at home, who've not been going to work.
What is your line on that? I mean, are you encouraging the immigrant community to come back to work?
Well, I will say prior to today I was. Now I don't know, because this just happened a couple of hours ago.
Right.
So I have to find out what that was. So, for example, while we're sitting here, are there raids going on right now? So it's hard to know. I think all of us are still traumatized. I know I certainly am. From what happened.
I guess, the thing that we keep circling is, how the hell are you supposed to do your job well when there seems to be very little communication? The information is rapidly changing, and you are given about as much intel and notice as I am.
That's correct. And by the way, not just me, the governor has no idea. Nor does our police chief, nor does our sheriff.
Oh, I'm concerned about Karen Bass right now.
Thank you.
We'll get to those boys later. How are you doing that?
Well, it
I mean, do you
does.
ever just pick up the phone and call the White House and go, can you give us any heads up?
I have.
You have.
Yes,
'Cause
directly and indirectly.
Okay. And what
And
happens on these phone
there
calls?
has not been a response.
Wow. He's ghosting you.
Yeah, and I wasn't saying I called him. I did put an official request in to speak to him.
Okay.
But I will tell you that is part of, I believe, part of the theater, part of the performance,
Mm-hmm.
is to not tell.
And what is your role in the play?
My role in the play is to fight like hell for my city.
Okay, let's talk about that. Restaurant owners have told you that the raids are as cooling as COVID
Right.
for the labor market. Over and over, I've heard how you talk about how your number one job as mayor, as you just said, is to protect Los Angelenos.
That's right.
Given the 1-2 punch of the wildfires and the ice raids this summer, do you think you have?
Well, I think I have in areas where I can.
Okay.
You know, for example, in terms of what is happening with ICE, you know, absolutely standing up, pushing so that we participate in the lawsuit, taking every avenue possible, meeting with groups and seeing what they need. So, and then also educating people, because I'll tell you that a lot of people did not understand the power of the federal government in relation to the local government. So, for example, a lot of people felt that sanctuary city law was going to be protective of them beyond the capacity. The problem that has happened here is that an administration has never taken this far. So, for instance,
What do you mean by this far?
there always have been ICE enforcement. I mean, immigration enforcement. That is not new. How they have gone about immigration enforcement this time is brand new, that left all of us, you know, flummoxed
Right.
from that. And so
Previous Democratic administrations have
lots of deportations.
more deportations than some even
Right.
than some even Republican.
Correct. However,
which is
not
people forget
masked
that.
men running through streets,
Right.
randomly picking up people. No, that is what is new. The brutality of this enforcement is what is new. And so that caught all of us off guard.
Mhm.
And
The indiscriminate
it also,
nature.
The indiscriminate nature. And it also tests the limitation of sanctuary city. And so for a number of people who felt like, well, you know, why aren't you defending us? Why aren't you stopping this? You know, and having to get people accustomed to the reality of, in my opinion, a federal government that has gone awry.
When we talk about the fires, I mean, and the other part of the equation, aside from the ice raids, are the fires. And you recently sat with Vice, and you told them you have at least 10 regrets around the handling of the LA fires.
I did.
The first is that you were not in Los Angeles when they began.
Right.
The second was the lack of notice from the fire chief ahead of time, forecasting what could have been before your diplomatic trip to Ghana. I want to talk about both of those, but what are some of the other 8?
The 1 and 2 are huge.
Okay.
You know, and the way I've tried to describe it so that maybe people could feel a connection to it is that if you had ever been out of town when a close family member or friend had an accident or became very ill, it doesn't matter why you were out of town. It doesn't matter where you were. You feel the deep regret that you weren't there when you were needed.
Boy, let me tell you, I was here when the fires began, and I remember that interview coming out that has now become this viral sensation of you getting off the plane and sitting at the and standing at the jet bridge.
Madam Mayor, David Blevins from Sky News in the UK. Where fire chiefs say that they're really stretched to the limit and running out of water. What have you got to say to that? Have you no response to that? Do you owe citizens an apology for being absent while their homes were burning? Do you regret cutting the fire department budget by millions of dollars, Madam Mayor? Have you nothing to say today?
Can you back up? I appreciate it.
Have you absolutely nothing to say to the citizens today? Elon Musk says that you're utterly incompetent. Are you considering your position? Madam Mayor, have you absolutely nothing to say to the citizens today who are dealing with this disaster?
So the fires began on the 7th.
Yeah.
You get on the first plane you can board from Ghana, which is a military plane, which means that you can work and make calls throughout the flight, which you did.
Mhm.
So you land back in LA on the 8th. The city is already in flames.
Yeah.
And not exactly pleased to discover that their mayor is not here.
Right.
And I know this is something, knowing your family history, your personal history in public service, I know that this is something that must have weighed on you over the last 7 months.
Absolutely. Yes.
Probably every day since January 7th.
Well, I think a couple of things happened. One, I was stuck and ambushed. And so it was a little shocking because where I normally deplane is different than the public.
Yeah.
And the code wasn't working. So I was stuck at the door looking at this guy who was trying to let me out. I had no intention of speaking to him.
Okay.
And I wasn't sure who the heck was flashing. I had no idea who it was.
Okay.
And there's a big spotlight that's on me. I've not slept in like a day and a half.
Yeah.
I felt totally ambushed. I didn't know who was ambushing me.
Yeah.
And I was not about to engage in a conversation.
You're not a big Sky News person?
No, I didn't. No. But I was also just dead tired too, and
Yeah.
very anxious to get on the ground. I'm feeling terrible. I mean, all of those hours I spent 12 hours flying from Ghana. That's the other thing too, is the time difference.
Mm-hmm.
So I spent 12 hours flying from Ghana to LA. To DC. And then another 5 hours on the plane. So that's 17 hours on a flight. I'm dead tired. Somebody shining a big light and yelling at me. That was how I was taking it.
And since then, how has it stayed with you? Like, does it still nag at you a little bit?
Yeah, it nags at me, of course, because it's been played over and over and over and over again. Sure, absolutely. I mean, that's our life in social media now. And I'm sure I'm going to continue to see it. And then, there was the moment, okay? There was the moment that I was going through.
Yeah.
But what's far worse was to see that moment.
Over
that was
and over.
far worse.
Yeah.
Yes, because when you're going through it, you're not thinking about how it's coming across. You know what I mean?
Do you feel like you should have said something to the citizens that day?
I honestly, at that time, I don't.
No.
No.
You don't think you owed that?
Well, it's not a matter of owing it, absolutely. I owed Los Angeles everything.
Right.
And I know you probably can understand this. You weigh whether or not you burst out and say something when you're totally unprepared.
Mm-hmm.
And I needed to be on the ground. And I think in those moments, and not just that moment, because I've certainly experienced being ambushed many times, but when that happens, I do choose. There's some occasions maybe I've done differently, but I do choose not to say something because I want to be prepared. I'm not on the ground. I don't really know what's happening. And so to have responded then, and that's certainly something I've reflected back on. If I had to do it over again, would I have said something?
Would you have?
I'm not sure. I might have.
What would you have said?
I might have said, you know what? I got to get out of the plane and get briefed, and I'll have a press conference later today.
Yeah.
I think if I would have said anything, it would have been that.
That probably would have gone a long way.
Mm-hmm. It might not have stopped what he was doing, though.
Let's talk about what you actually did. Once you got off the plane and you folks get to work, the Pacific Palisades, which is under your jurisdiction, was ravaged by the wildfires.
That's right.
Beginning on January 7th. Since then, you've been working to turn what was once a disaster zone into a robust construction site. 90% of debris has been removed with the help of President Trump. About 300 rebuilding plans have been approved. And under Emergency Executive Order 8, the recovery is, quote, on track to be the fastest in modern California history. That this is a remarkable accomplishment, and I suspect the first time many listeners are hearing about it. If the recovery is so fast, why has the messaging been so slow to people?
Well, you know what? That's a very good question because we say it all of the time. I say it all of the time.
I'm trying to say it right now.
All of the time. But I also always qualify it. what happened to people
Mm.
was a massive traumatic loss.
Mm-hmm.
And it was a collective loss of thousands of people all at once, and losing everything that you had. It's more than a house. It's the memories, and then the memories are critical, but then equally as critical is the sense of community and relationships. And so for me to sit here and talk about it's the fastest, it's the bestest, it's the brightest, that doesn't make them feel any better.
Mm-hmm. It
They're
doesn't bring back the homes.
No,
Yeah.
they're not in their houses. And so maybe 3 years from now, I say that,
Mm-hmm.
when they're already back in their homes.
Mm-hmm.
So I always try to qualify it because I think it's always important to acknowledge what people went through.
Part of the reason Palisade citizens have been able to rebuild so fast is because your office issued executive orders to cut through red tape
Right.
and expedite the permitting process,
Right.
which is a real feat. I want to know, why does it take an emergency, a historic wildfire, for the city to move with a sense of urgency? Why is the red tape only cut in the wake of catastrophe?
Why is the red tape there? How about that?
That's a question for you.
I know. It was rhetorical.
No, I think it's real for you. You spent time in the state legislature starting in 2004, right? You represented California's 36th congressional.
It changed 36, 37.
Okay, one of the congressional districts for a while.
Yeah.
Well regarded on both sides of the aisle.
Mm-hmm.
You're the only person I know that Barack Obama and Kevin McCarthy likes. Like you're in the Venn diagram of Obama and McCarthy.
Mm-hmm.
There's almost no one except for you.
Mm-hmm.
Why is there so much red tape?
So, if you go back to why I ran for mayor, red tape was a key issue.
Yeah.
I ran for mayor because of the 46,000 people on the street,
Mhm.
homelessness. And one of the reasons why there were all these people on the street is because of red tape. So what I did in the first day of my administration, the very first day, instead of going to City Hall, I went to the emergency department and declared a state of emergency over homelessness. The whole purpose of that state of emergency was to deal with the red tape.
I know that.
So actually what we were doing with the fires was also based on our experiences from homelessness. So what needs to happen in the city overall, oh, you want to say something?
What you're describing is we have a system that you are now at the top of
That's
in many ways. And you're saying in both instances of my great successes, which is what we would describe and is what your office has described the homelessness inside safe program and the fire recovery efforts. In both instances, you're saying that the system that you are part of
Right.
has to be circumvented
Right.
by way of emergency declarations.
And you know
How does that offer any amount of confidence to people who are voting and trying to be part of this city?
So let me just explain it this way. Maybe this will help. I've used emergency directives to circumvent while the change to the system that needs to take place is happening.
So you're walking and chewing gum.
I'm walking and chewing gum.
Okay, explain that to us.
So rather than wait, okay, so the process is the city council is very involved. They have to draft an ordinance that then becomes a new law that would eliminate the red tape, right?
And let's be specific. Red tape, when it comes to recovery efforts,
meaning all the steps that you have to go through. You got to go to 12 departments, and every department is doing whatever they're doing. It's not working together, okay? So for that to really change in law, a law has to be written, and that's a process that could take a long time. I don't have time for that. So I use executive directives to circumvent the law while at the same time working to change the law. If I had gone about the process orderly, we'd be sitting here 2.5 years later talking about trying to get people off the street.
Do you think Democrats are overly concerned with process? Do you think they get bottled down in process instead of getting to results?
I think that can be true. But this is what I'm describing here is the process that has to happen in order for a law to change. So I don't have the patience for that. So if I can use my authority as mayor to circumvent that and do it quicker while we're going through the process, then I'm going to do that.
So tell me what's happening on the chewing gum part of this equation. We see you're walking.
I'm chewing.
The recovery's happening.
Yep.
There's a lot of good stats that are coming out of that. Anecdotally, I've heard a lot of positive things. Tell me how you're working with the city council and state legislature to fast track and to better work through and eliminate red tape.
Let me give you an example. The permitting fees. Okay. People, and I believe rightfully so, in the Palisades felt like, wait a minute, what do you mean I have to pay to rebuild? This was an act of God. I didn't do this. I didn't choose to remodel. So I did an executive directive that said, you don't have to pay. I put it on pause. Now, why did I do that? Because it takes a law of the city council to waive the permits. But I can use my authority to make it happen faster. It's the same thing with rebuilding in terms of building affordable housing. I used my executive authority to do it quicker while the ordinance or the law is working its way through. So I'm chewing gum and walking at the same time. I just don't have patience for the walking.
You don't?
No. It takes too long.
Takes too long. What do you have patience for? LA traffic?
Action. Action.
Let's talk about where you did grow up. You're born in South Central. You're raised starting at 10 in the Venice, Fairfax area where you attend Hamilton High School.
That's right.
Your friend Susie Shapiro said, quote, some of us goofy girls, this is her words, not me, some of us goofy girls were worried about silly things like, how can we get to the beach without parents finding out? Karen wasn't interested in that kind of stuff. What kind of stuff was teenager Karen Bass interested in?
Politics, the Vietnam War. The Vietnam War was central to my adolescence.
That was key.
Absolutely
and why?
key. And then the post-civil rights movement. So when I was a child, it was the civil rights movement. That's what I was always talking to my father about, especially at night, because the nightly news was on TV, and I could see those horrible pictures of demonstrators who looked old to me. Of course, I realized they were teenagers, but I saw them being assaulted. And then when the civil rights movement kind of blended into the next generation, which was more militant, like the Panther Party, all of that was very fascinating to me. That's what I was interested in when I was a child.
In the morning, you and your father would listen to the news. We talked about that earlier. Those, at night when you were watching with him, are there conversations that you had with him that you still replay from time to time?
Yes. And not only that, I mean, those moments I treasure until this day. Those were just such precious moments. But sitting next to him and watching the protesters have food dumped on their heads and being kicked and brutalized, and Martin Luther King's speeches. And, my parents, this is really sad to say, but my parents prepared me and my siblings for his assassination. So when he was killed, it was not a surprise.
How did they do that?
Well, they just told us he wasn't going to live.
They said that?
Oh, absolutely. Yes.
And how old were you then?
I was 10, 11.
Right when you guys had moved over?
Right. Well, when I moved over, 2 months later, Kennedy was assassinated.
Right. When they told that to you, when your parents said to you, be prepared, what did you think of that?
Well, it made me mad. But during those times, I was in such a hurry to grow up because I wanted to participate. I wanted to get out there and to participate. So
you didn't like being a kid.
That was being a kid.
But you were precocious.
I guess I didn't see it that way, but I really wanted to grow up so I could participate. So when I was 14, Bobby Kennedy started running. and I worked on his campaign. I did something that my mother never knew, but I signed her up to be a precinct leader. But I was the precinct leader.
I heard about that, and you stuffed envelopes,
Uh-huh.
right?
I went to the headquarters, rode my bicycle. I still ride my bicycle.
I still can't get over it. I like when you say it made you angry. What did that anger look like, or like manifest in you? Because you are someone, as I understand, even throughout this conversation, level-headed, cool, sort of unflappable. What did that look and feel like at that age?
Oh, it was that's some childhood trauma that I still carry, because to me, what King was fighting for was such a no-brainer, that the idea that people wanted folks to be segregated and all of that was very difficult for a child to understand. My father was, what's important is that he was born and grew up in Texas. What I didn't realize until I was an adult is he never ever talked about his life. I never knew anything about him personally. And I guess it was too painful for him to talk about. He never went back to Texas until much, much later in life. And
Would you ever ask him?
I did, but he wouldn't. I don't think I asked that much, but it was something he didn't talk about. My mother, so he migrated to LA in the mass migration of Black folks out of the South after World War II. My mother was very unusual because she was actually born here before Black people arrived. So her family left the South even, a generation before my dad did, and there were only a handful of Black folks here. So my father had one view of the world, my mother had another view of the world.
And looking back on it, their two views of the world shaped your worldview.
Created me, absolute 100%.
How? What is it? What do you see as the two of them in you?
Yeah, my father instilled the fight. My mother instilled the collaboration, the working together, the always wanting to find the best in people, the optimism.
Those two don't sound exactly in harmony, though.
They're not. Well, but you know what, though? My parents, neither parent, wanted me to touch politics. They did not. My father they did not want me to be involved politically at all.
Yeah.
And it wasn't for ideological reasons. They wanted me to live. That's why when Obama started to run, so many Black people didn't want him to run. They were fearful. And through his race, after he won the primary, I was like, he's not going to make it. I would wake up every morning, he made it. Another day. And I remember going to see Michelle Obama speak right when he first, announced. And it was a conversation. It was mostly Black audience, but she said how they talked and recognized that we're going to do this, but it might not turn out.
Your father had this fear, but you did not heed his advice.
No.
You go to Cuba at 19. He says, if you go, that means you're done with us. And you did it anyway.
And they were never done with me.
Who could be done with them? Why did you go?
After the King and Kennedy and all the other assassinations that happened in those years, I lost faith. It was like, I wanted to say there's got to be a better way to do things.
You lost faith in what?
I lost faith in, what was happening here. I felt like, are we ever going to have justice? We were very, those were years. It's important to provide the context of those years, because those years, as a young person, I certainly, like a lot of young people do, I certainly felt that I could get out there and I wanted to participate in changing the world. And I believe the world was going to change because the world was changing all over. I mean, you had the Vietnam War, but you had the independence the independence wars that were happening in Africa and in Asia and in Latin America. And young people were at the forefront of all of that. And so I felt like things, were going to change, but things needed to change radically. We needed to get rid of discrimination. We needed to provide education and health care for everyone.
Mm-hmm.
And I wanted to see what that looked like. So after...
And you had those concerns when?
When I was in high school.
High school.
Mm-hmm. So I worked all through high school. I saved my money. I graduated high school on Thursday, and I left the country on Tuesday. I had never been on an airplane before. I had no clue what I was doing. I traveled through Europe for 3 months.
Okay.
I thought I was going to leave the country. I didn't know if I was ever going to come back, but fortunately, somewhere I had some common sense, so I bought a return ticket.
You bought a return ticket.
But
you didn't give up quite yet.
No. But I traveled through England and Scotland, and then I went to a library trying to figure out where to go next, and I spun the globe around, and wherever my finger landed, that's where I went.
And?
I went to Greece. But I forgot that Greece was under a military dictatorship. I had watched a movie about it before. I think the movie was called Z.
Mm-hmm.
I watched the movie, but I had forgotten about it, and so when I landed in Athens, there were troops.
So how do you work your way from disillusioned, disaffected young person, a self-described leftist, back to Los Angeles, wanting to make a difference?
Because while I was there, I'll tell you, it was a very specific incident.
Oh.
There was a protest in London to free Angela Davis. And I felt really guilty because I had met Angela Davis. I had participated in her philosophy classes because in high school, our teachers were on strike. And while our teachers were on strike, I rode my bike to UCLA and sat in on her classes. And so here
And you remember those classes?
Yes. I don't know what the classes, they were philosophy classes. I couldn't tell you what we were talking about. But I felt guilty that here I am all the way in London and people are protesting to free somebody that I actually met and that I had a duty to go home.
How did you understand that duty?
I just knew that I needed to go home and figure something out.
So your brother, Keith, has said over the years, Karen has become more practical, more realistic.
My brother said that?
Yes.
Okay.
I can read the full quote if you want.
Yeah, what did he say?
He said she's become more practical, more realistic as far as what actually can be done. This has been a big, 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 big change. He said big 4 times.
Wow.
And moved her quite a bit in terms of away from being extreme left.
Really?
Evidently.
Mm-hmm.
When did leftist, young, disaffected Karen Bass become practical, more pragmatic Karen Bass?
I always wanted to improve the quality of life and to change things for the least of those of us. Because I felt like then, and I feel like now, we are the richest country in the history of the world. We choose not to do certain things. We choose not to provide health care for our whole population. We choose not to put in effect the science that we know that works to prevent problems. We choose not to provide an education system for everyone. And I think we're better than that. And I think that we should be able to do that. And so when I was looking at a society that does it different and didn't find one, then I come back here saying, I have to figure out how to make a difference. And maybe it's not the global change that I want to see. Maybe it's not even the national change that I want to see. But I have to figure out how to help those folks that are suffering from the brutal parts of our society.
But when you're at the Community Coalition for Substance Abuse Prevention and Treatment, which you founded, it's like South Los Angeles grassroots organization. It was at a storefront in South Vermont.
But let me go back before Community Coalition.
Okay, go back.
So, I wanted to make this change.
Yeah.
Nobody told me that was a job.
No one
So
told you change was a job?
Right, nobody told me that someone would pay me to do this, okay? So
Yes.
I went into the healthcare field
Yeah.
because I was always fascinated by physiology. One point I thought I wanted to be a doctor.
Mhm.
And
You
then,
become a nurse.
well, yes, I became a nurse. I wanted to be a physician assistant.
Mhm.
But during those years, you couldn't just become a physician assistant. You can now. The profession was very new. So you had to go do something else first. So I became a nurse. I worked in the NICU, the neonatal ICU. I went back to school. I became a PA, and I worked in the emergency room.
Mm.
So I loved that because I had the instant gratification of helping somebody. But I was also way more obsessed with the conditions that led to them being in the emergency room in the first place.
Got it.
And so I was teaching at USC Medical School, and then the crack cocaine crisis hit.
Mhm.
And by the way, the political work I was involved in during those years was after working on the weekend.
Mhm.
I was very involved in the anti-apartheid movement and freeing Nelson Mandela, that whole international movement.
You said you would drive through Skid Row every day to the county hospital,
Right.
and you would see some of those people who came into their emergency room there,
That's right.
and you wondered, why do they go from here to the hospital?
Well, I mean, I actually knew why because I understood the kind of system we had.
Okay.
I knew why. It was because of the social and economic conditions that people lived in. And so I wanted to see those changed.
Mhm.
Anyway, while I was at USC and working in the anti-apartheid movement, crack cocaine hit. And to me, I guess the way I would compare it to younger people is it felt like COVID that just impacted Black people.
Mm.
That's what crack felt like. Because people were dying all over the place. Because at the same time the crack epidemic happened, so did the AIDS epidemic. That was a mystery and people were just dropping dead.
Mm.
So I draw that comparison. But crack, really, the impact of crack was really focused in the Black community. And then the problem is that all the politicians and policymakers, their response to this was to just pass laws that locked everybody up. Well, to me, it was a health issue. And because of my political background and understanding, especially of economics, it was a social and an economic issue that was being addressed, in my opinion, inappropriately. That's what led to me starting the Community Coalition.
You said the fundamental flaws that we've been doing over the last decade, over the last few decades in regards to homelessness, I don't even think we tried to end homelessness.
Exactly.
We just tried to manage it.
Yes.
Okay. What were the flaws as you understood them? And how are you now going about mending them?
So we were actually trying to address homelessness in the 90s.
Right. So this is the
Nobody
coalition.
cared. Right. Nobody cared because it was just in South Central and Skid Row. Even though crack was impacting the white community too.
Mhm.
But the laws, as you know, the laws were drastically different for crack and cocaine. But they're both cocaine.
Right.
Anyway, so I wanted to start an organization to try to shift the agenda away from criminalization toward a more comprehensive approach that certainly included enforcement, but it also included drug treatment. It also included addressing the economic conditions. So a lot of what I felt as a young person, it's not like I've changed. The question is recognizing that the societal change that I would like to see happen is not going to happen right now. And what I have to do is focus on what I can do right now to make life better.
How are the problems different from when you started working on this in the coalition in 1990 versus as you understand the problems now in 2025? Because 35 years have passed.
So what happened is we spent years locking everybody up, and then now we've been paying the consequences for that.
And the consequences are what?
The consequences are so this is what politicians would do, okay? A politician thinks about their reelection, and they think about their mail pieces or their advertisements that go out, and they want to say, well, what can I put on my mail piece? So I want to pass a law that shows I'm tough on crime. And so I'm going to pass this law that says, if you've been convicted of a drug-related offense, you cannot live in public housing. I'm not going to think about the consequences of saying that. So people come out of prison. They can't go back home to their families. Where do you think they land up? On the street. So so you asked me what was different now. We're now suffering the consequences of 30 years of very bad policy.
Mm-hmm.
The other thing that was happening was a slow stripping of the social safety net that started with Reagan, and I'm not talking about mental health hospitals, okay? I'm talking about a slow stripping of a lot of the social safety net programs that existed slowly went away.
Mm.
And then I think welfare reform was another one. When welfare reform was fundamentally changed, where you
Mhm.
could only be on the program for 5 years and nobody paid attention what happened to you in year 6,
Mm-hmm.
then you begin to have women and children who are homeless.
When you decided to go into the state legislature,
Hmm.
from the beginning, you said, I am a different kind of politician.
Hmm.
You said, I am not the politician who passes something
Hmm.
and then moves on
Mhm.
and then moves on to add the next thing to that flyer you're talking about.
Right. You want to know what I mean by that?
No, I
Okay.
want to know why you're an anomaly.
Well, and I don't think I'm an anomaly. I mean, there's other elected
know that-
officials, but there are other
Really?
elected officials. Yeah,
If there were, then how come this issue,
not enough.
not enough of them?
Yeah.
Okay.
So, for example, in Congress, there's 435 members.
Okay.
But even if there's 100, and I think that's easy number,
Mm-hmm.
it's 325 that aren't.
Not enough.
Mm-hmm.
But yes, go ahead. How do you
What do I
understand?
mean by that?
Yeah.
So,
For people who don't know, it's
for example, the policies that I worked on in Sacramento were the same policies I was working on in South Central.
okay.
I just was addressing them at a state level.
Mhm.
And then when I do a policy, the way I go about doing it is different, I think, than most elected officials. So if I'm going to do a policy that's impacting recidivism, then I'm going to talk to people who are coming out of prison and who are in prison to do a law that makes sense. I want their input. But then after the law is passed, I want to follow it to make sure that the law gets implemented the way I want it.
Mm.
I'll give you a recent example. This is policy, not so much a law that I passed, but as mayor, I learned that there's a number of policies, regulations, and laws that make people homeless or keep them on the street, okay? So one of them, very stupid, you have to prove your income
Mhm.
in order to get housing. Well, what if you've been in a tent for 5 years and you have no income? How do you prove nothing?
Mm.
So what I did was I went back to DC, I advocated, and we were able to get HUD, Housing and Urban Development, to waive that policy. So we could give you, we could say, I'll put you in a house,
Mhm.
then you can deal with your paperwork and your income.
Mhm.
Presumptive eligibility was what I fought for, and that happened.
Can
Okay,
I want to talk about what else you fought for
where?
in the legislature and then as councilwoman, because I am struck by your constant, unwavering commitment to public service. Whether people listening agree with your politics or not, I think it is undeniable that you have continued to fight for the people that you are aiming to represent.
That's my life's purpose.
That's your life's purpose. Now, I want to know how someone, in the aftermath of the tragedy that you endured in 2006 with your daughter, 3 days later, you have to go up to Sacramento to nominate Fabian Nunez for Assembly Speaker.
Mhm. It was tough.
When you were doing that, how?
Well, I steeled myself to do it.
What does that mean?
That means that I focused, blocked out how I was. One of the things that was tough about that was everybody was looking at me. Like, when you go through a tragedy, when you lose somebody,
Your daughter passed away
right? No one knows, and my son-in-law,
and your son-in-law.
no one knows what to say to you.
It was a car accident, right?
Yes. No one knows what to say to you.
Right.
They're very uncomfortable in your presence because They don't know what to do or say.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm feeling all of that
Mm-hmm.
from my colleagues. And so I got through what I needed to get through. I got in my car, I went home and fell apart. But I knew I needed to hold it together for a couple of hours, and that's what I did.
And falling apart looks like what?
Just in grief.
Mm.
In grief. Mhm. And I think that's the grieving process to me is obviously very personal because of that. But it also, I think people, especially people who lose children, it's kind of like a bond. Like I often, if I know somebody has lost their child, I call them up and talk to them
Mm.
and prepare them for what's going to happen.
And what did happen?
Well, the discomfort that everybody feels around you. I did have one time, I did have somebody say to me, you know, people don't really want to be around you because they don't know what to say or how to act. And even though that was kind of tough to hear, I appreciated the honesty. It put words to what I was seeing.
And feeling.
Mm-hmm.
And on those phone calls, how do you prepare someone like that?
Well, I just tell them that, number one, to don't try to block the grief, let the grief flow. And don't try to control it. And be prepared for people saying really crazy shit to you.
What do they say?
Oh, I remember somebody saying to me the day I was being sworn in on as speaker, which was a very tough day because nobody was there. I mean, I lost my mother, my father, my daughter, my son-in-law. They were all gone. So my parents never lived to see me become an elected official. And somebody said to me, you know, God takes and then he gives. And I'm like, well, what does that mean?
Mm.
You think I got something here? Being speaker is, yeah. I mean, I said I would walk away from this if I had 1 hour or 1 day. This is,
Yeah.
there's no comparison. There's no.
This is not a consolation prize.
No.
It does seem to me that the way you are unflappable, your resolve, your commitment, comes out of and is inspired by that loss. Do you feel in some ways that you're doing this for her, like your commitment?
So going back to how I got it together to nominate Fabian, she would be pissed at me.
Yeah.
If I stopped. So it is in her memory and in her honor that I carry on.
Mm-hmm.
But also after going through something like that, there's nothing that compares to it. So
yeah,
it's like, okay, I can handle it.
Yeah. You mention this in every interview. You say, this is the last office I will ever run for.
Absolutely.
I think it's good to know when to quit.
Absolutely.
Seems like a particularly pointed statement given the Democratic Party last year. Mm-hmm. Why do you keep saying this?
Why? Well, because you know why? Because I want people to know that. I mean, let me back up a little bit. Politicians are held in such low disdain that I think people just always assume you do things for political reasons. Like I think that most people, maybe, I don't know, don't believe that I ran for mayor because I wanted to address homelessness. I mean, I was fine in Congress. Loved most of it. Especially loved the fact that I could do foreign policy and domestic policy. But I gambled everything to come home because I was having flashbacks to the 90s. And I saw them being repeated. So
the punitive nature.
Yeah, the punitive nature. I thought we were getting ready to do that again.
Okay.
And I didn't want to see that happen. I want people to understand I don't have any ambition other than to run for reelection because I'm not finished.
Mm-hmm.
I've been here 2.5 years.
What would be a finished job to you?
A finished job to me?
You declared
Yeah.
an emergency
Yeah.
around homelessness. The moment you stepped into office, what would that look like?
Here's a finished job. By the end of a second term, if voters allow me to have that, I wanted there to be a very clear pathway that homelessness is going to be over,
Mm-hmm.
that the system has been redesigned to end it,
Mm-hmm.
and that we have made a significant dent. For example, I do not believe that there should be encampments anymore. Individuals who are homeless, okay, that's going to take us a bit longer. That we have affordable housing and that it's clear we're on track
Mm-hmm.
to build X number of units, that we know what people need to get off the street and we actually have implemented it. I think that we know what to do. I feel a level of confidence in that now
Mm-hmm.
that I didn't 2.5 years ago, because just coming in, I had to diagnose what was wrong and treat it at the same time.
Okay, so as we leave,
Mm-hmm.
give us a diagnosis
Yeah,
and give us the treatment.
sure. So one of the things that we did not do in Los Angeles, we didn't focus on interim housing. We were obsessed with, we have to build you a house. That's crazy with that number of people being unhoused. So we need to have a system of interim housing, which could be hotels, it could be motels, it could be a lot of different things. But then prepare for an individual to be there for up to a year and a half while housing is built. It doesn't matter how much red tape I eliminate.
Mm-hmm.
It still takes a while to build something. Not focusing so much solely on building, but focusing on taking care of the people and getting them off the streets.
Mm-hmm.
No one should be on the streets. Street homelessness should not exist. What we do now is we take them off the street, we put them in a hotel, motel, whatever, and then we give them virtually nothing and expect for them to get their lives together on their own.
Mm-hmm.
People need health care. They need social worker involvement. They need help in repairing their lives so that they eventually become self-sufficient, not needing any government help.
And your office is committed to doing that.
I am absolutely committed to doing it. I'm obsessed with doing it.
And you run again next year, which you're going to run?
Yes.
Is that top priority for you? Does that remain the top priority for you?
Absolutely. That, crime, quality of life, cleanliness of the city,
Mm-hmm.
yes.
Okay, 2028,
Mhm.
you see the city looking like what?
I see the city looking, one, I want to see murals everywhere.
Okay.
You know how you see the graffiti now? So I want those graffiti artists to come together and paint beautiful murals
Okay.
all around the city. I don't want there to be random trash all around the city.
Okay.
I want the
Aesthetics
city
aside,
to look better.
go on.
And I want the games to impact the city, whether you go to the games or not. That was one of the beautiful things about Paris. Everybody had a way of participating. And by the way, what no car means, that just means to and from the venues.
Okay.
It's not saying there'll be no cars on the street.
Okay, good. Last question for you. You said in the beginning that the Trump administration is making a test case out of this city.
Yes.
Your capacity to beat back against this administration, your willingness to fight, does it all come back to your early years in your 20s when you started taking taekwondo? Like, what did you learn about civil engagement?
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate the question. You know, I training as a martial artist.
Yeah, through taekwondo. What
Taekwondo,
happened here?
Hapkido, you learn how to fight differently. You learn
Okay.
how to fight more strategically.
Tell me how.
well,
I'd like to learn something.
You learn how to pick your fights. You learn how to not fight.
Okay.
So, you know, people think because they don't see me screaming and yelling and emoting publicly that I'm not fighting.
We cut all those parts out of the podcast.
Yes, right, I know. that I don't fight
Mm-hmm.
and I don't have disagreements. I
Mhm.
absolutely do, but I believe that you can have constructive disagreements. And Taekwondo teaches you how not to fight.
In the next year,
Mm-hmm.
against this administration,
Mm-hmm.
tell me the fights that you want to wage?
Definitely continuing around immigration, but also homelessness. He came out with his executive directive around homelessness that could lead to punishing, could lead to criminalization. It doesn't have to, but it could lead to that. And then also the militarization of the games. We talk about the Olympics. In 11 months, we have the World Cup.
Mm-hmm.
And so I don't want to see our city militarized.
Paramount has settled. Columbia has settled. Will Los Angeles kowtow to the Trump administration?
Well, Los Angeles won't kowtow, but Los Angeles does have to recognize we're dependent, not completely dependent, but federal funding is very significant. Let me just tell you one thing. I don't pick unnecessary fights, okay?
Okay.
I don't grandstand. And so I will work with the administration, and I'm arguing with them now. Mm-hmm. But I see a lot of other areas to work with them. Mm-hmm. And then a number of his cabinet members and all, they're people that I served with.
When you wake up in the morning at 4:30.
Mm-hmm. That's about right.
This goes back to childhood.
Mm-hmm.
Your dad didn't wake you up. You woke yourself up.
Yep.
When you wake up most days now as mayor, mm-hmm. given all that you've endured, especially with your daughter, what do you tell yourself to keep moving forward?
Oh, that's my responsibility. This is my responsibility to do this. The people that came before me who suffered 20 times more than me.
And in moments of doubt?
It's like, get it together.
Get it together.
Yeah.
And what does get it together mean for you?
It means focus. It means not dwell on yourself. It means keep your eyes on the prize. I always look to history. I always look to my ancestors, what people had to endure in this country. Mm. And I say, how dare you not think that you can do, you're coming in such a privilege from the mayor. Mm-hmm.
And you want to keep going.
Absolutely. And by the way, and when I'm done with this phase of my life, elected office, I'll continue to be involved. I'd like to think maybe I could take a year off. I've never even taken a month off, okay? But I will always be involved. I just don't have to be in elected office.
Mayor Karen Bass, thank you so much for the time today and for your continued efforts. Like I said, it's been a tough year for Los Angeles.
It has been.
And the fact that you're willing to come here today to answer every question I had.
Thank you. And thank you for the opportunity to have a substantive conversation. I appreciate that.
That's kind of all we got here.
Yeah, well, I like it.
I'll see you next time.
Okay.
Thank you.